Good morning, church. The reading for this week is taken from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 10, verses 25 to 37. Luke chapter 10, verses 25 to 37. And I read, "A teacher of the law came up and tried to trap Jesus. 'Teacher,' he asked, 'what must I do to receive eternal life?' Jesus answered him, 'What do the scriptures say? How do you interpret them?' The man answered, 'Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your might. And love your neighbor as you love yourself.' 'You are right,' Jesus replied. 'Do this and you will live.' But the teacher of the law wanted to justify himself. So he asked Jesus, 'Who is my neighbor?' Jesus answered, 'There was once a man who was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, when robbers attacked him, stripped him, and beat him up, leaving him half dead. It so happened that a priest was going down that road. But when he saw the man, he walked on by on the other side. In the same way, a Levite also came along, went over and looked at that man, and then walked on by on the other side. But the Samaritan who was traveling that way came upon the man, and when he saw him, his heart was filled with pity. He went over to him, poured oil and wine on his wounds, and bandaged them. Then he put the man on his own animal and took him to an inn, where he took care of him. The next day he took out 2 silver coins and gave them to the innkeeper. 'Take care of him,' he told the innkeeper, 'and when I come back this way, I will pay you whatever else you spend on him.' And Jesus concluded, 'In your opinion, which one of these 3 acted like a neighbor towards the man attacked by the robbers?' The teacher of the law answered, 'The one who was kind to him.' Jesus replied, 'You go then and do the same.' Here ends the reading. May God bless his word. Amen.
Good morning, everyone, and it's a privilege again to be standing here. Although each time I come here, I feel like, I don't know whether you've ever gone to the hospital and seen a young doctor, and you wonder, you wonder whether he's going to be able to treat you well. I feel like this young doctor, not even qualified, to give any advice, but here I am, and by the grace of God, I hope that his message will come through to us. This passage that we've just read is a very familiar story, but I think it's also good from time to time. I was going to choose another passage to add to it, but I thought, no, I'll just stick to this one, even though at first sight it might seem very simple, and I think it is very simple, but I think it also can help us to wonder a bit more perhaps about our own situation, our own, that's my I hope the title that I chose was Going the Extra Mile, and I hope that you will all be encouraged to go the extra mile, like the Samaritan in this story. So let's look again at this passage. The context is that Jesus is continuing to preach, to do miracles, and on this occasion, this teacher of the law comes up to him and asks him a question. And this is not the first time we see in the Bible that people ask him questions, especially the teachers of the law. Teachers of the law are the ones who, maybe you call them Pharisees, they are the ones who are really trained, not like me, trained to know the law and to apply it in everyday life, Jewish faith. So they know the Old Testament at that time was their Bible. They know it inside out. They know everything that is in it. They know the laws that Moses handed down and the other laws that were developed. So it's strange that he comes up to ask Jesus a question, about, how do you inherit eternal life? Of course, he knows the answer. And the Bible tells us here, he comes to try to trap Jesus. I don't know why he thought he would trap Jesus, but I think they were all trying to trap Jesus because at that time, Jesus was actually questioning or challenging some of the traditional beliefs that they had developed or the wrong interpretation of the law. So when he asked him, what must I do to inherit eternal life? He's hoping, he's a bit like a lawyer in a court, asking a question and hoping that the answer will, be shaky, be, uncertain, and that they can trap Jesus because he's developing a following. People are following him like never before they have followed a teacher of the law. So he's trying to trap him with this question. And interesting to see that Jesus does not answer his question directly, but throws another question at him and asks him because he's supposed to know. So what do you think? What do the scriptures say? How do you interpret them? And then the teacher of the law says, well, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your strength, with all your soul, and then love your neighbor as yourself. When I saw that, I was wondering, and I didn't manage to check, unfortunately, whether he actually was there or could be there before when Jesus also said that, because another scribe or another teacher of the law asked him, what is the greatest commandment? And that's exactly the answer that Jesus gave. The two commandments, if you want, that summarize all the commandments in the law. So he answers that, and of course Jesus says, well, do this and you will live. But then the teacher of the law is not happy. He hasn't been able to trap Jesus yet. So he asks another question, and he says, who is my neighbor? I don't know whether he already knew the answer to this question. I suspect not, because the answer that Jesus gives actually is mind-blowing for all of us. That's why I think we need to dwell on this. And maybe he, in their customs at the time, the teachers of the law, they were quite clear about clean and unclean. So, they would not treat Jews, non-Jews the same, even, by race or religion. They might accept other people from other races who become Jews. But we see in the Bible that actually there were a lot of restrictions. There were people who were unclean. There were women who had their period would be considered unclean. And so there were a lot of things. So maybe he's genuinely asking, who is my neighbor? Because he wonders where does somebody is still a neighbor and where somebody is no longer a neighbor. And he's asking that maybe because he's curious to know, or he wants, again, to trap Jesus because he's hoping that Jesus, when he answers, again, will be shaky, will not be sure, will be, like giving an answer, which we often do, when we don't know the answer, we'll give a vague answer. But Jesus answers him with this famous story of the Good Samaritan. And what we see in this story, of course, it's a story, but we see this man that is traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho. It's a journey of about 25 miles, 17 miles, maybe 25 kilometers, I didn't count. And it's actually a downward walk journey through very rocky and desert place, okay, because and it's Jerusalem is sort of I think 800 meters above sea level, and then Jericho is down, in fact, below sea level. It's near the Dead Sea, where we all know about the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea is dead because it's actually below sea level, and so the water doesn't flow out, you know, it just stays there. So Jericho is actually, I think, about maybe 200, 300 meters below sea level. So, and it's rocky, and it's perfect place for robbers to lie behind a rock or something and just attack the travelers, because people traveling, what do they normally carry? They carry money, they carry food, they carry maybe even jewelry. I don't know at the time whether they had that kind of thing, but certainly any opportunity to trap somebody who's alone, they would take. And so what happens to this person, of course, is, in this is a story again, but it's not an unusual story. But people who listen to Jesus would understand the kind of context straight away, because Jerusalem to Jericho, they already know it's a bit dangerous, that place. They already know of people who have been attacked and robbed. And so same thing happens here. This man is alone. He gets attacked, stripped of his clothes. They even steal their clothes, you know, and leave him half dead, probably because he was fighting, he was trying to run away, but they would beat him up and leave him for dead. Leave him for dead because he was half dead. Okay, so and then what happens is interesting. A priest who's probably I don't know whether going to Jerusalem or going back to Jericho. Jericho is a place where there were a lot of priests. I think it's in the area which is, you know, a lot of priests. So according to the research I did, so he was on his way back or on his way to Jerusalem, to the temple. He has a look at he sees the man, the story says, and he just walks by on the other side. It's a normal reaction. I think we would also have done the same thing. We see something suspicious, and we'd rather stay away from it because it could be dangerous. It could be a trap. You know, unfortunately, this happens today. Somebody who looks like he needs help, in fact, is trapping you. So he walks on the other side and walks by. The second person in the story is a Levite. Now, a Levite is also of the priestly tribe of Israel. Not a priest, but somebody who serves in the temple. So again, maybe he's on the way back from the temple or on the way to the temple in Jerusalem. And he has a look, this story tells us, he has a look, comes up to the man, has a look, and decides that he's not going to help him and goes on the other side and walks by. I don't know, again, it's a story, but it could be that the person is not convinced it's a person who needs help, and so is going away. Or he's in a hurry. You know, we often do that as well. We see somebody in need, but we are in a hurry. We have our own plan. We can't stop by. You know, we're on our way to business, you know. And then finally, a Samaritan comes by. Now, a Samaritan is, when Jesus says he's a Samaritan, we presume that the man who's injured, wounded, robbed is a Jew, because, I mean, you tell a story, if you don't say anything, Jesus is a Jew. The people he's talking to are all Jews, so, or mostly Jews. You assume that he's a Jew. But the Samaritan comes by, and when the people would hear Samaritan, they would always, you know, because a Samaritan is not considered clean or you know, somebody you want to be associated with in those days when you are a Jew, because they are like half-breeds, you know, they are mixed Jews and mixed with other people, non-Jews, etc. They may claim to follow the Jewish faith, but they have different interpretations as well. And so they are, in fact, they occupy a piece of land which is, let's say, more or less to the north of Israel. A certain place where we read elsewhere in the Bible that Jews who travel from, let's say, from the north to the south uh, would not cross that place because they would rather go a long detour around it instead of going through Samaria. So Samaritan is like, not somebody you want to associate with when you are a Jew in those days. But the Samaritan has a look, and we know the story. He goes out of his way. He goes the extra mile to help this person, even though maybe he's a Jew, he's not family, not neighbor, not relative, a stranger. Uh, that he pours oil and wine. Oil and wine are expensive. On his wounds to heal him, to at least disinfect the wounds. Um, and not only that, he puts him on his animal. We don't know what the animal is. Could be a donkey, a horse, on his animal, and takes him to an inn. If you imagine the scene, he's actually taking the Jew on his animal and walks along. He's actually really going the extra mile, and takes him to the inn. Not only that, at the inn they look after him, they heal his wounds. But even then, you would say maybe that's enough. He can go on his business. But no, he takes 2 silver coins out, gives to the innkeeper, and says, this person is not yet ready to travel. Keep looking after him, feed him. I'll give you 2 silver coins. 2 silver coins in those days were 2 days' wages. So you'd expect these 2 silver coins maybe to last a week in the inn. And he knows it might not be enough. And he even says to the innkeeper, when I come back this way, if there's anything you've spent more than these 2 silver coins, I'll pay you the difference. This is really going the extra mile. And this is something which, again, I want you to visualize, understand just how far this Samaritan has gone to help somebody who considers him an enemy. Jews and Samaritans are not friends. They are more like enemies. And so the story, at the end of the story, then Jesus sorry, let me just see again. So yeah, Jesus concludes his story by asking the men now, the teacher of the law, well, you heard the story. In your opinion, which of these 3 persons was a neighbor to the one who was wounded and left for dead? And of course, the teacher of the law had to say, is the one who was kind to the wounded person. He doesn't even want to say, is the Samaritan. It's that kind of thing. He says the one who was kind. And then Jesus says to him, well, go and do the same. Yeah, do the same. This is the interpretation of the neighbor. It is actually the neighbor, our neighbor, the one that we refer to when we say love God, love your neighbor as yourself, this commandment from God, is actually our worst enemy. It doesn't stop at family. It doesn't stop at your relatives. It doesn't stop at your actual neighbors living near you. It doesn't stop with maybe the church. Okay, here we can consider definitely we are neighbors. It doesn't stop here. It doesn't stop the stranger who comes and steals from here sometimes. Fortunately, we haven't had a big break-in, but you've seen glass broken somewhere here as well, because there are people who have tried to steal things from here. We had people try to steal on the other side in the Caribou. They are neighbors. If we were to see them in need, we would help them. We would have to. This is the commandment. So I think this is where I would like us to really think about our own situation, where we are today. I don't know about your personal lives in detail, but I'm sure all of us, we have this challenge in our daily life. The people we work with, the people we, maybe if you're still at school or a student, the people, your classmates, the people that you interact from time to time, your relatives, even the ones that are not really no longer considered part of your family because there has been an issue, a dispute about inheritance, or I don't know. But I think we all have, I have some relatives I do not know because my family has not wanted to keep contact with. And yeah, these are our neighbors, according to this story. It could be somebody who really hates you. Unfortunately, we can have this at work, especially. It could be your boss, it could be your subordinate, it could be your colleague competing with you for promotion. It could be somebody who just doesn't like you. And any opportunity you make a mistake, if you make a mistake at work, they will report it to the superior. They will gossip about you. These are the people, these are our neighbors who are supposed to help. There's no limit. And I was thinking, going the extra mile also means it also means when we serve God, there should not be any limit. We should just, if God prompts us to help, to serve, to sacrifice, we need to do it. We need to go the extra mile. Sometimes, even, I must admit, in the past week when I was preparing for this, I was thinking, again, I feel like a fraud. I feel like, I don't know, I'm not qualified to preach really. And wouldn't it be nice if I didn't have to preach this Sunday? Huh? I thought that. Honestly, this is what happens every time. No matter how often you do it, it's still like, why am I doing this? I could be relaxing instead of trying to understand what to say. But God calls us to do that, And even this week, when I was looking at the Caribou and the Friday group, who I don't meet, but I know they are working, we are going the extra mile for this project. We don't even know whether it will succeed or not, okay? But we believe God can help us make it a success. And that's why we are making baby steps, over the years. Now that we have a plan to open the cafe in August, it's looking like we are in July. Are we ready? We're not ready. We're not ready. Will we ever be ready? No, probably not. But we have to open. We will have to go that extra mile, take that step of faith. And I believe God will really bless us if we make these steps, if we obey Him, if we go the extra mile, because He's the one who gives us the strength, the courage, the perseverance, the patience, and also the mind, maybe to change course if necessary. Because when God made us, He made us with a soul, with a heart, with a mind, and with strength, We worship Him with all of this. We will love Him with all of this. And so we apply all of this in our life. We don't ignore. Sometimes I've heard Christians say we should walk by faith and, not trust in your own strength. Of course, we walk by faith, but God gives us also strength. He gives us courage. He gives us a mind to think, because you are made in His image. So it's not, I don't think it's right sometimes to say, oh, let's pray for healing, but, we don't need the doctor. The doctor is trained to know how the body functions. He may not know everything, and there is sometimes room for not knowing what to do. And doctors, you remember Dr. Dinesh often said here, you know, when he operates, he knows, he prays, because he knows he cannot do everything. He cannot do everything. He knows that there is a part that he knows, he applies it, he has learned, he has been trained to do, a doctor, but there is a bit that he doesn't know. And he has seen miracles when he operates as well, because he knows that there are times when people are healed without what he did, you know, beyond what he did. So we need to apply everything that we know. Recently, I've been thinking about the Air India tragedy, you know, the flight. Again, I'm a bit surprised that we still don't have an official report. It doesn't seem of how it happened. But again, it's like, when you think about it, I think it's a miracle that's happening every day when a plane goes up and reaches its destination. It's a miracle. Because if you think about it, it's like this little tube, you know, containing people, with air, with all the machines and everything to keep these people alive and take them, land safely on the other side. It's a miracle. Each time you fly, it's a miracle if you make it. But from time to time, things happen, and these tragedies are because either of our own mistake, or because we didn't think of something that can happen but did happen. So, and sometimes, it could be technical, and everybody, after this tragedy, everybody tries to cover themselves. You know, the airline constructors would often blame the pilot. Human error, you know, and in fact, everything is human error. It could be either that we didn't think of this situation that can happen. We saved money by cutting, instead of putting some more safety features, we said, no, we stopped because we don't want to spend more on this plane. So we'll, it won't happen, just have one device instead of two, let's say, because and one of the theories I've heard is that there is a sort of like a mastermind piece of thing which controls both engines, and if one engine fails, the engine should be able to operate, but if that central piece of unit is defaulty itself, then it doesn't matter. One engine goes, both engines, in fact, go, because that central part is not backed up, or is not got a second alternative to it, or whatever. And then it happens so fast. So, but these tragedies or natural disasters, whatever you call it, they're typically, you could say it's human error, because we know, for example, in California, it's a lot of earthquakes, but we still build, we still try to stay there. Japan is on a faulty line, but where do people go? We have to live with danger. We have to live with, we can't really live without any danger. Wherever we are, even we take our car, we go, we could have an accident. So we can't, but I believe God has designed us to enable us to be more and more clever and more inventive, creative, in order to avoid these kind of disasters. And if it happens anyway, instead of blaming God, which often people do, so many people don't believe in God because they think that if God really existed, there would be no suffering. Well, we all know, as a Christian, we know that there's not only God, there's the devil. There's the rebel who's actually trying to counter what God is doing. So that's why we have suffering. That's why we need to, like in this story, rethink about our own preconceptions. The teacher of the law, I hope, after this encounter, would become a follower of Jesus. But he would have to rethink, because all he just cannot conceive that Jesus could be the Son of God. He just could not conceive that this person who hasn't been trained, comes from nowhere, actually seems to know more than him as a teacher of the law who's studied for many years and the traditions and everything. So my encouragement to you would be that just like I feel, even if I'm not capable, I'm not trained, God can still use me. As long as I'm faithful, I remain humble, and I'm open to challenge. So even when I read this, I'm thinking, next time I meet somebody who I don't like or who doesn't like me, I'm still called to love and serve them. And I hope that this would have enabled us, all of us, to think about where we are today, and maybe this week practice it. Just go the extra mile. In your work, maybe instead of stopping where you think you've done your job, think what more you can do. In my work, in consulting, we often say that you should delight your client. You should not just satisfy your client, you should delight him. You should surprise him. So sometimes a bit of free advice, going beyond and checking whether the person needs anything else, goes a long way. If you are, let's say, working in a shop, I'm surprised and I am ashamed. So often when you go into a shop these days, it seems as if nobody's interested in selling anything to you. I mean, of course, you have the opposite. You can have people who try to sell you anything and everything. But too often in Mauritius, you go to a shop, nobody takes any notice of you. You have to go and look for them and ask them, I'm thinking about this or that. So I think we are called to go the extra mile, to do the thing which is surprising, just like this Samaritan in this story. He has surprised everybody in this story by going the extra mile and looking after somebody who actually resents him, doesn't want to touch him, doesn't even want to be seen with him, but he goes and helps. So this is, I think, God is calling us to do this. And I hope that in our Caribou project, we will have plenty of opportunity to go the extra mile with the people who will walk in. Maybe they will walk in for a cup of coffee, but deep down they are looking for something more. And I hope that we can give this something more to them. So many people are lonely these days, and I think that God is going to use this place for us also to learn, because not just to serve people who come in, but we ourselves, I think we will learn from this. And as I said, we may make mistakes, but I think if we don't try, we won't know, and we won't learn. Yeah. Thank you.